This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the wonderful GSMC Podcast Network. I am, of course, your host on this Tuesday edition. I am your host, Josh Strickland, and I hope everyone had a great Super Bowl. I hope you enjoyed your Super Bowl. I hope you enjoyed your not holiday on Monday. Let's just get right into it. I mean, so this show kind of stacked, if I do say so myself. You got... We're going to talk about the Super Bowl, of course. We're going to talk about Kyle Shanahan and his, tendency to blow Super Bowls. And then we will talk about the NBA All-Star Game changes. We will talk about some trade deadline speculations for the NBA. Then we will talk more about the Houston Astros, about what we'll go more in depth on the cheating scandal that the Astros have, more in depth on it. And then we'll talk about the XFL, which starts Saturday. So let's get into it. The Super Bowl, man. Chiefs won 31-20. I think it was a good game. You know it's a good game when you have multiple moments of, oh, well, that's the game. Game's wrapped up. You know it's a good game when there's multiple moments like that. And there were moments like that. I thought after Patrick Mahomes' second interception, oh, this game's over. 49ers got it. I thought after the Chiefs made it 2017, I was like, well, there's no way the 49ers will let them get the ball back because there's like 5 minutes left or whatever. So I thought it was over. Then the Chiefs, of course, take the lead, and then I was like, okay, it's over. And that time it was for real over. So a lot of talking points going on. We got Andy Reid finally winning a Super Bowl. My boy Andy finally winning a Super Bowl, getting rid of that stigma of being a choke artist, being bad with time management, bad with using timeouts and challenges, which, to be fair, he ended the game in the most Andy Reid-like way by still having 2 timeouts left. He burned 1 timeout at the very end of the game, and it's a very Andy Reid thing to do. So, you got that. Then you have Kyle Shanahan on the other hand. Does he have the now choke artist stigma for coaches in the National Football League? Which, of course, it's kind of obvious if you look at it, because you have the Super Bowl 3 years ago with the Falcons, and then you have the Super Bowl this year, both times with very, very good leads heading into the fourth quarter. Both times that those leads were shot. Then, of course, you have the quarterbacks. You have Patrick Mahomes etching himself in history, being the youngest player to win MVP and youngest player to win the Super Bowl MVP. Then on the other hand, you have Jimmy Garoppolo, who's a little older than Patrick Mahomes. People think he's not a good enough quarterback to lead a team to win a Super Bowl. And we'll get into that a little bit later. Then you have Damian Williams having a phenomenal game with 133 all-purpose yards. You have Mostert. Should they have used him more? Should they have used him more? Should the 49ers use them more, especially down in the final couple quarters, which I'll once again get more into. Then you have Legion of Zoom, Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Travis Kelce, all having big plays. Then you have George Kittle only getting 4 catches for 36 yards. There are a bunch of stories going on, so let's talk about this. So Patrick Mahomes, he is now the new king of the NFL, according to some people, and it's kind of hard not to give him that title because he just won the Super Bowl. Some people complain that he should not have won the MVP. There's a good argument there because there's a lot of... both teams didn't really have any players that stood out. I mean, you could say Nick Bosa stood out for the 49ers more than every other player on the 49ers. But for the Chiefs, not really any player stuck out. I mean, Tyreek Hill kind of stuck out. He had over 100 yards receiving, but then again, he had like 16 targets and 9 catches. Sammy Watkins had a couple pivotal plays, got 5 catches, 98 yards. You could consider him. Damian Williams came out, had a fantastic game as a running back with 17 carries for 104 yards, had a lot of big plays in that game. So I feel like everyone on that team, they did good enough to win the game, but they didn't do good enough to really put them over the edge, if you know what I'm saying, to win MVP. And if that happens, it kind of defaults to the quarterback at that point. It defaults to the quarterback. People don't like that, but it's kind of how it is. It's going to default to the quarterback no matter what, because the quarterback is the most important player. We talked about this, people. Quarterback's the most important player. Quarterback touches the ball every play. He is the most important player. Then we move on to Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo had chances to redeem himself in this game. You can look on it on Twitter. I've seen posts on Twitter about it. There are plays where George Kittle's wide open, Deebo Samuel's wide open. These guys are all wide open. Jimmy just makes the wrong read. Or the coverage tricked him. He made some bad throws on his bad reads. Jimmy Garoppolo just basically showed the entire league that he may not be ready for that next step. And this comes to a shock to a lot of people, because a lot of people had that argument of, oh, did the Patriots choose right? Did they choose right between Tom Brady and Jimmy G? Which, obviously, the Patriots won a Super Bowl after they traded Jimmy G, so, you know, not that big of a deal. Legion of Zoom, of course, Tyreek Hill getting open for that 44-yard catch on that 3rd and 15. That saved the game for the Chiefs. Beautiful route against the coverage they had against them. Great job for Patrick Mahomes. He stayed alive in the pocket to let the play develop a little bit more, and they stepped up in the pocket, threw a perfect ball while getting hit. Well, not necessarily a perfect ball. It was a little short, but still a good enough ball to get to Tyreek Hill, and Tyreek Hill to get the catch to get the first down on that 44-yard reception. That was a big play. Then, of course, you had the Sammy Watkins 38-yard reception against Richard Sherman, which Richard Sherman is another big story from this game. Against Richard Sherman, that was another key play in the game. Watkins is a key player because he ended the game with 5 catches, 98 yards. It seemed like he had a big catch every time he touched the ball, and it kind of proved my point during the Super Bowl special show that I did on Sunday. The 49ers secondary is good, but they're kind of old. Richard Sherman's not as spry as he used to be, so I kind of had a feeling that the Legion of Zoom, as people call them, was going to have a good day against Richard Sherman in the secondary. They weren't going to keep up, and it eventually caught up to him. Sammy Watkins with the great release against Richard Sherman, then Tyreek Hill with the great post-corner route that fooled the safety there. So the Chiefs wide receivers definitely beat the 49ers secondary in this game. The offensive line, on the other hand, Patrick Mahomes was pressured the entire game, and you can definitely tell at the beginning he was rattled by it, but he got over it. Like I said that the 49ers will need a huge lead to even feel comfortable going into the fourth quarter. They had a 10-point lead going into the fourth quarter, and look how that happened. Three touchdowns. Back to back to back. 21 straight points. I mean, shoot, they put 51 straight against Texans, so it's not that out of the realm of possibility. One thing I will say is that this game was very similar to the national championship game between LSU and Clemson. Seeing as the 49ers have a very good rushing attack, and they're going up against Kansas City / LSU, who has the hot quarterback of the year. I mean, Lamar Jackson's the hot quarterback in the NFL, but Patrick Mahomes, the hot quarterback, the hot new quarterback. And you're kind of sitting there thinking, it's like, okay, this is going to be a shootout because Chiefs can't stop that running attack, and the 49ers, I don't think, can stop Patrick Mahomes. 49ers did a really good job at stopping Patrick Mahomes. Like I said, whole first half, Mahomes was a little rattled. He had that the Chiefs had that one good drive, one good touchdown drive, but most of the time, Patrick Mahomes just looked rattled. He looked like nerves were getting to him, and going into halftime 10-10. Then the 49ers take a 10-point lead. Sounds familiar. But then once they take that 10-point lead, they start panicking, and it's one of those times where they weren't conservative at all. The 49ers were super aggressive. We'll talk about this in the next segment with Kyle Shanahan. But Mostert only had 2 carries in the last couple of drives, including the drive where the 49ers were up by 3 points. He had a carry for 5 yards, and then they threw 2 straight incomplete passes to finish that drive, 3 and out. So we'll talk about that in the next segment. That's more of a Kyle Shanahan thing. But I'm just saying it played out similarly to the national championship game, and that was very interesting. But congratulations to Kansas City. Congratulations to the Chiefs. Congratulations to Andy Reid. Congratulations to Patrick Mahomes, the new face of the NFL, kind of officially. This is his coronation. So congrats to them. Up next, we're going to talk about Kyle Shanahan. Is he cut out for the NFL? When we return.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
You had the Atlanta Falcons versus the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl, and the Atlanta Falcons were up 28-3. Going into like 2 minutes left in the third quarter. The Patriots then go and score, make it 28-10. And then all the Falcons have to do is the fourth quarter, you're up 28-10, you're up 18. All you got to do is run the ball. Run the clock out a little bit, maybe score a field goal. Stuff like that. What ends up happening is that for some reason, the Falcons pass the ball a bunch, stop the clock on their own fruition, on their own accord, and kind of let the Patriots get back in it. This is kind of the opposite situation, as the Falcons were a huge passing team. They were a big passing offense that year. Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, those guys were, Mohamed Sanu, those guys were going insane that year. So they're a huge passing offense in Atlanta. The 49ers were, on the other hand, are different. You have Jimmy Garoppolo, who's shown signs of being great, but, never really is trusted to be great. Then you have Deebo Samuel, who's been used in a bunch of different ways. You have Mostert that's been playing phenomenally, especially in these playoffs. You got Coleman, that's been playing pretty good as well. But your rushing attack is amazing. You rushed all over Green Bay. You rushed so much against the Packers in the championship game that you didn't even have to pass the ball more than 10 times, and no one was stopping you. You're going into Kansas City. You're going into the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs, who has the 25th ranked rushing defense, and you come out and you kind of pull this. So let me explain. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan deserves to be in the NFL. He's a very good coach. Any team would take Kyle Shanahan over the alternative, which is probably the coach they probably have. Like the Browns probably would take Kyle Shanahan in a heartbeat. The Jaguars would probably take Kyle Shanahan in a heartbeat. The Raiders, well, no, not the Raiders. The Raiders are probably fine. The Chargers, maybe. Dolphins definitely would take Kyle Shanahan in a heartbeat. There's a bunch of teams that would take Kyle Shanahan in a heartbeat. So I'm not saying he doesn't belong in the NFL. Although I kind of did tease that. Sorry about that. But here are some questionable things that I noticed during the Super Bowl. He called a timeout. He did not call a timeout near the end of the first half. Kansas City got the ball with just over 2 minutes left. Let the clock run down the 2-minute warning. Kansas City didn't convert a 3rd and 14 and there's a minute 53 left. San Francisco had all 3 of their timeouts. Usually most teams would call a timeout so they can try to score again going into half, especially since the 49ers are getting the ball back in the second half. Most teams would call a timeout and try to score. That's what most teams would do. What Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers did, they did not call a timeout, and he did give an explanation, which I'll get to that in a little bit, but they did not call a timeout. They let 40 seconds run off the clock before Kansas City punted it back to them. And then after that, they ran the ball. The clock ran down more. And then they got a 20-yard gain on a pass. And then they had that huge 42-yard pass with George Kittle that obviously got called back for offensive pass interference, which is debatable. He did extend his arm. By the definition of the rule, it is offensive pass interference. However, it's kind of ticky-tack if you don't mind me. I mean, I feel like the defender was also battling with him, so I feel like it was kind of a meh call, you know? But anyways, so basically what this tells me, I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo made that great throw, but why didn't you trust him to make that throw earlier in the half? So basically what I'm getting from this is that Kyle Shanahan either doesn't trust Jimmy Garoppolo or something else, which he mentioned in his press conference after the game, that he just didn't want Kansas City to get the ball back because of the explosiveness of Patrick Mahomes. He didn't want them getting the ball back and then, scoring going into half. He was comfortable with a 10-10 game at halftime. My thing is, I mentioned it in my preview show. You have to take a lead against the Chiefs any way you can. The Chiefs were 5-0 this year, down by double digits. 5-0 or 6-0, one of the two. The Chiefs were unstoppable when they were down by double digits. So you go in there, you have an opportunity to get 3 more points, 7 more points, and then go into half and get the ball back to make it a 10 or a 14 or a 6-point game. And then you also have that 10-point swing they had, which obviously we don't know if that happens, if they score, if it's hypotheticals, whatever. But I'm just saying, you kind of... you elected to not have anybody gain momentum rather than your team taking a chance on your team gaining momentum. You know what I'm saying right here? You'd rather go take the ball, trust your quarterback, because, he made some good throws on this drive. Trust your quarterback, get into field goal range, kick a field goal, be up 13-10, and then you can come out at the half, score a touchdown, make it 20-10, and then you could have gotten another field goal and make it 23-20, which obviously in the end that wouldn't have mattered that much. But it's more points. You're leaving points on the board. You're leaving points on the field, actually. I'm sorry. You're leaving points out there because you're not... It's kind of this conservative thinking that kind of ruins games. So I'm thinking he didn't trust Jimmy Garoppolo. Now we go into the fourth quarter. The Chiefs just scored a touchdown with a play that saved their season. The one to Tyreek Hill. You were up by 3. You got 6 minutes to go. Kyle Shanahan, what do? So he runs the ball. Runs the ball with Mostert for 5 yards. Okay. Then you get 2 incomplete passes by Jimmy Garoppolo. 2 incomplete passes straight. You didn't want to run the ball at least one more time, kind of drain the clock, another minute or anything like that. No. We're going to throw incomplete passes with Jimmy Garoppolo. And like I said, you can watch the video. There are points where Jimmy Garoppolo had a wide open man and he did not even look his way because he made a bad read. So now there you have it. 2 incomplete passes. You're punting it right back to the red-hot Kansas City Chiefs, and they go down the field. They score another touchdown. Now you're down by 4 with 2:39. This is everyone's dream. Every quarterback's dream, every coach's dream. You're down by one score and you have under 3 minutes to go in the Super Bowl, they start out with a 17-yard run to Mostert. Then they get set up a short pass with George Kittle. Then another short pass to Bourne. Turn into 16 yards. After that, you still have plenty of time. You still have all your timeouts. You could have ran the ball. Give the ball to your big playmaker, Mostert, there, because they weren't stopping him. He had a 17-yard run in the beginning. Give it to Deebo Samuel on a sweep or a reverse, because that's been working the entire game. So what do they do? 3 straight incomplete passes. So you're telling me you can't trust your quarterback to score points at the end of the first half, but you try to trust him to score points to win the Super Bowl? That's bad, man. It's bad. Then Jimmy Garoppolo gets sacked on 4th down to give the Chiefs an opportunity to put the game away, which they did. They scored a touchdown, a huge run, and that was it. It was 31-20. That's the game. Kyle Shanahan, questionable coaching decisions. Of course, some of that is just Jimmy Garoppolo not performing to the level that people expect Jimmy Garoppolo to perform at. So I can't put it all on Kyle Shanahan. I mean, you got the defense not being able to stop Kansas City. You got Jimmy Garoppolo not making plays when he needs to make plays. It's not all Kyle Shanahan's fault, but because of his past, because of that past Super Bowl, people are going to say it's Kyle Shanahan's fault. And that sucks for him, but it comes with the game, comes with the territory. You got to go win out. You got to go win a Super Bowl. Hopefully you don't take 20 years to win it like Andy Reid did. Hopefully you can go out and win a Super Bowl. I mean, this 49ers team is still really good if they can keep all their pieces. They're going to be really good next year. Jimmy Garoppolo, whether or not he's still part of that conversation, is a different story, but we'll find out. Up next, we're going to talk about the NBA All-Star game changes and why you need a calculator for the All-Star game.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Stated before that I don't like all-star games. I've already stated this. I stated this last week. I don't like all-star games at all. All-star games are a outdated concept where the league is just trying to make money on people that don't that aren't used to seeing all the big name players. Like, for instance, it's in Chicago, so if there was like no TV, no internet or anything like that, all the people of Chicago have a chance to see all the best players in the NBA play in this all-star game. That could be very entertaining. You know, if you're watching it on TV, you can see all the best players in one game, something you would never see ever. But now with the advent of the internet and all the hype videos and highlight videos that you have, it's just kind of pointless to have an all-star game, but they still have it because why wouldn't you at this point? There's really no reason to not have an all-star game at this point. So the NBA, they're trying to change their rules up, which I agree with. The NHL changed their rules for their all-star game. NHL all-star game is a little bit more exciting. They added skill competitions. Pro Bowl added skill competitions, but they added them the day before or whatever. The NHL has the 3-on-3 tournament, which is really fun to watch because 3-on-3 hockey is just a lot of fun. There's a whole lot of ice out there. So the NBA trying to change their format, and they've changed it a little bit before. They changed it to where players can draft their own teams, and that's what they're doing this year, by the way, where you have a pool of players, and you can draft players from each team, which leads to very interesting teams. It's no longer just East versus West, because back in the day, it was basically the West, all the best players from the West facing LeBron James, and that's just not fun anymore. So now it's Team Giannis versus Team LeBron. So the NBA is trying to make it mean more, so the players will actually start playing to their full potential and make the game a lot more interesting, because in the past couple of years, it's just been like 150 to 160, no defense at all, no competitiveness. Everybody's just out there having fun, which is great. But as an average watcher, as a person who's just watching the game, it's kind of boring when you have all these all-star millionaires that don't care about how the game goes. Why should I care? And that's kind of the root issue with all-star games. If the players don't care, why should I care? MLB used to do this with the winner of the All-Star game getting home field advantage in the World Series, which a lot of people didn't like. I personally liked it because it gave the players a reason to care. Because if you were a team with World Series aspirations, then why wouldn't you try to win the All-Star game? I mean, that just makes sense to me. If you want to play at home, you want to win. That makes sense to me. So let's get into it. Here's the All-Star changes. It's a little complicated, so I will go slow. I will explain everything because it took me a while to remember it. So Team Giannis and Team LeBron, like I said, they will draft their own players between the rosters that I mentioned before. They will compete to win each of the first three quarters, all of which will start with the score 0-0 and will be 12 minutes long. At the beginning of the fourth quarter, the game clock will be turned off and the final target score will be set. So, the final target score is determined by taking the leading team's total cumulative score through three quarters and adding 24 points, representing Kobe Bryant, the late great Kobe Bryant, which is their kind of homage to Kobe Bryant, adding 24 points. Basically, they're playing a pickup game to 24 in the fourth quarter, basically, but not really. So, for instance, if the cumulative score through the first three quarters is 100 to 95, then the target final score would be 124. So, if the score is 100 to 95, that means the team with 95, they still have to score 124 to win, and it's an untimed quarter. So there's no time limit. I'm assuming there's still a shot clock, but they're just going to keep playing until one team reaches 24 or 124 or whatever in that scenario, which it's the NBA, so I doubt it's going to take that long for teams to reach 124. I doubt it. I doubt it's going to take that long. So, more than $1 million were contributed to Chicago community nonprofit organizations through NBA Cares outreach efforts. Each team will play for a Chicago-based charity as selected by team captains Giannis and LeBron James. So, this is basically a way to try to get the players to care about it more. They're trying to get charities involved so players play to their full potential so their charity of their choice can win some money, get rewarded money. So the winner of the first three quarters awards their organization with $100,000. So if you win the first quarter, so let's go through this imaginary scenario. So you play the first quarter, scores like, I don't know, 40 to 35 or something like that. So the team with 40, their charity gets $100,000. Then the second quarter starts at 0-0. Second quarter starts, then it's 25 to 30 or whatever. The team with 30, their charity gets $100,000. And then it starts over again. It's 0-0 to start the third quarter. And then they play in the same thing. And then the fourth quarter, they add up the three scores from the first three quarters, and then they add 24 to the highest score, and then you play to that. That's the final target score. So there's a lot of math going in there, and I don't really know why they made it this complicated. It's just kind of confusing to most people. I know there are a lot of memes going on about how you need a calculator to be able to keep up with it, but That's what the NBA is going with. They wanted to make it more competitive, so they're making each quarter a mini game. And if you win, a charity of your choice wins money, a Chicago-based charity of your choice. So it's a great way for NBA to get that social outreach, looking like a great organization while trying to get the players more motivated to do well in this game. If there is a tie in a quarter, so like if they tie 25-25, then $100,000 from that quarter will go on to the next quarter. So the second quarter, whoever wins the second quarter gets $200,000. And then if one team wins like the whole thing, then the loser will win. The loser's charity will still win money. So pretty much they're guaranteed. Each charity is guaranteed $100,000 at least. But I feel like the way that the NBA players are kind of like, they're each just going to be, it's probably going to be $200,000 each way. So that's probably how it's going to go. It's probably going to be like Team Giannis wins one quarter, and then LeBron wins the next quarter. Then Giannis wins the third quarter, and then LeBron will win the fourth quarter. I really don't think there's going to be that much more competitiveness to this, because at the end of the day, the players don't want to get hurt. As you can see with how they act during the regular season, like players are barely competitive during the regular season. And you expect them to be competitive during a pointless All-Star game where don't get me wrong, they probably want to win money for their charities, but at the end of the day, it's still kind of pointless, you know? Still kind of a pointless game in the eyes of the NBA players. So it's going to be interesting to see how it turns out. I'm probably not going to watch it, so if you do watch it, let me know how it goes, because I'm not going to watch it. It's still a very confusing premise. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, but it is interesting enough to keep me somewhat engaged into it, but not really enough to really actually tune in and watch. So we'll see how it goes. It's an interesting concept. Like I said, charities win. Players are there. Who knows if they'll win off of this, but like I said, interesting concept. We'll see how it goes. They haven't drafted teams yet. I think they do it like the first day of the All-Star break or something like that, or they do it sometime this upcoming week. But who knows? So up next, I will be discussing trade deadline, some speculation that are going on, some stuff that I saw on The Athletic and on Twitter earlier today. Who's going where? Is there even going to be a huge trade deadline here coming up in the NBA, as the deadline is Thursday, I believe. So we'll talk about that when we come back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
The NBA does a really good job of making their offseason and their trade deadline very interesting, because it seems like every team wants to make a splash acquisition, either during the offseason or during the regular season with the trade deadline. Every team wants to make a splash. Now, that doesn't mean every team makes a splash, but, still. So, trade deadline's coming up. It's Thursday. So I looked up on The Athletic. I read a couple articles on The Athletic. I read up on Twitter a couple times. So here's some trade deadline speculations that I've seen, and so I will comment on them, of course. So, Warriors and Timberwolves are having conversations centered around D'Angelo Russell. Golden State would only consider a deal that has significant draft pick compensation as part of any Minnesota package. So the Timberwolves, they're looking for a shot-making point guard. They're looking for a guy who can make plays, who can score points, which D'Angelo Russell is definitely that. D'Angelo Russell has kind of been the placeholder guy in Golden State since Steph Curry and Klay Thompson are both gone, and he's doing a pretty good job. I mean, he still makes the greatest shots that he usually makes, and the team's not good, but he's the best player on that team, and he's still a good player. He's a solid player. Timberwolves, they want him. Timberwolves, however, are currently in a rebuild, so they are reluctant to give up any draft capital. They are looking for a shot-making point guard, though, that will complement Karl Anthony Towns. Kind of a guy that opens up space for Karl Anthony Towns and lets him get more space, get some defenders off of him, stuff like that. The New York Knicks have also shown interest in D'Angelo Russell and discussed potential packages. But it's looking like the Warriors will hold off until the offseason unless there is a great deal on the table, which a great deal would be from the Timberwolves, as they have the better-looking draft pick than the Knicks, I guess. The Timberwolves are looking for a spark. They're in a difficult position currently. They're carrying their second 11-game losing streak since Thanksgiving, which, by the way, how on earth do you have two separate 11-game losing streaks? Two separate. That's crazy. I mean, the Timberwolves, this is a very disappointing season, as we've already discussed before on this podcast, but it's been a very depressing season for the Minnesota Timberwolves, as they were expected to have a great year this year, and they are bombing hard. And so they're trying to save it. They said acquiring a point guard is the number one priority for the T-Wolves. It is hard to find another player of Russell's caliber who can become available anytime soon. So they could wait till the draft some guy who, has potential. But as you know, potential does not always mean that they're going to reach it. It doesn't mean, just because they have high potential, does not mean they're going to reach that high potential. So getting D'Angelo Russell, who's a known commodity, could help out very much for the T-Wolves, especially this year, trying to get fans more back in it, because they have not been good. This year, fans are kind of jumping off the boat. They're kind of angry about everything. But I think D'Angelo Russell will be a great fit. I think he can get the ball to Towns, Karl Anthony Towns, and I think he can make some space for Towns and makes Towns the player that he should be. But we'll see if they pull the trigger. The Warriors, obviously, the Warriors themselves are kind of in a rebuild, but not a rebuild, as the Warriors have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson both injured. They still have those guys. They're injured, though. Like I said, D'Angelo Russell's doing a pretty good job at filling in for them. But once they get back, there's no role for D'Angelo Russell on the Warriors. The Warriors are more likely going to trade him at some point, whether now or the offseason. So it really depends on if the T-Wolves are willing to make that bet on D'Angelo Russell. So we'll see how that goes. I think they should, but that's just me. Who knows? Drew Holiday is under contract through next season, is able to fit a team's short and long-term salary structure. He's a two-way player capable of upgrading to a contending team. I've seen him play a couple times in person, and he's made some clutch shots for the Pelicans. He seemed like he's always been a great team player for the Pelicans. There's been speculation that Holiday wanted out of New Orleans, but that has changed recently. He stated that he wants to stay in New Orleans, and most of the reason because Zion's kind of come back. The Pelicans' playoff hopes, are kind of back on schedule now. With Zion, they're looking better. as a team overall. They had a 10-game win streak or something like that, or won 9 out of 13 games or something like that in December. So the team's really on the up and up. So Drew Holiday obviously sees potential in the team, so he wants to stay on the team. But Denver and Miami are interested in Holiday. Several others are expected to emerge. Pelicans are going to listen to trade calls for anyone on the roster, but their asking price seems to be super high for Drew Holiday, which makes sense. Because like I said, with Zion back, the Pelicans have a great chance of making the playoffs, and Holiday would be a great point guard to stay with the Pelicans. Stay put on Holiday, and I think it just makes their team look that much better. I mean, they still have Lonzo Ball, and they still have Brandon Ingram and all those guys they got from the Lakers, all the baby Lakers that are no longer Lakers. So Pelicans are looking good. They're sitting pretty right now. Zion's been as electric as promised. He's been playing really well lately. And the Pelicans they have a chance of making the playoffs. They're only a couple games out. They have a chance of making the playoffs. I don't have the standings right in front of me. I could probably pull them up real quick if I can keep talking and not, ruin it. But the Pelicans do have a chance at staying in the playoff hunt, at least. So, for instance, let's see here. So they are currently 20-30. They're 4 games behind the Grizzlies. Grizzlies are 24-25. You have the Trailblazers, which I didn't realize Trailblazers were doing that bad. But Trailblazers are 23-27. Spurs are 22-26. Suns are 20-29. Pelicans are 20-30. So they have a chance to still make the playoffs. I don't know what their schedule looks like for the rest of the season, but with Zion back, they beat the Cavaliers, they beat the Grizzlies, they lost to the Rockets, they play the Bucks tonight, Wednesday night, play the Bulls, Pacers, Trailblazers, Thunder. They play a bunch of teams that they should be able to beat based on the rankings, especially with Zion Williamson. So we'll see how that turns out for them. Next up, we have the Atlanta Hawks are one of the several teams interested in Rockets center Clint Capella. Rockets are unlikely to move him, barring an overwhelming offer, because then they would have 0 big men. I'm not sure why the Rockets are trying to trade one of their only big men, but that's what they're doing. So we'll see if that ends up, they said, barring an overwhelming offer. Hawks are getting calls to move John Collins, who is part of the Hawks gun core, along with all-star guard Trae Young. However, the Hawks are looking for a more natural center and have expressed interest in Capella and interest in Thunder Steven Adams, which I think Steven Adams would be a great... Steven Adams is a great player. Clint Capella is also a great player. So either would be a great pickup for the Atlanta Hawks to kind of help Trae Young, take some pressure off Trae Young. Which, by the way, I watched Trae Young on TV for the first time, and he had like a double-double in the first quarter, and he had like 40 points or something like that, and 16 free throws, something crazy like that. That man is just like James Harden. He fouls all the time. Like, he gets fouled all the time. I don't know if that's just because the way he moves his body when he gets when he's shooting or anything like that, but that man is a foul machine. But we'll see. We'll see what happens by the trade deadline. Hopefully, I'll have more stuff to talk about for the Thursday show. But if I don't, the Sunday show will definitely be with talking about all the trades that have transpired. So when we come back, more details about the Houston Astros cheating scandal, including different stats before and after between the 2016-2017 season of some players and the Astros as a whole. They're kind of eye-opening, so let's see if that cheating scandal kind of for real. Did it really help the Astros?
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Scandal that has been rocking the baseball world in the past couple of weeks. It was big enough to kind of overwhelm the championship games in the NFL, which is unheard of, especially for baseball-related activities, especially this far out. I mean, pitchers and catchers report soon, but nobody really cares about that. I mean, I'm a baseball fan, and I don't really care about pitchers and catchers reporting. It's just one of those things where it's kind of like, oh, baseball's almost here, but it's not. So, Houston Astros, their sign-stealing scandal, their cheating scandal that has been rocking the baseball world, putting a camera in the center field, banging on trash cans for breaking balls, and silence for fastballs. It is such a mind-boggling trend to think about, you know? But we have official numbers. Someone went through every single game of the 2017 Astros season, every home game at least, and counted every single trash can bang. And we have data now. We have data that backs up how well this worked, how much this helped players, and I'm going to read off some of this data. So some of this data is not based off the accumulated data by that Astros fan, but some of this data is just kind of to complement that data. So, in 2016, Houston Astros hitters struck out 1,452 times. Now, this is good enough for the second most in the American League, most strikeouts in the American League, fourth most in baseball, and the eighth highest total in the history of baseball. So, this is a historically bad year for hitters striking out. In 2017, when the cheating scandal began, which it began in about May, the Astros cut their strikeouts down by 365. So they went from being punched out 1,452 times to only 1,087 in 2017, going from one of the highest rates in history to a team that struck out less than any team in baseball in 1 year. That kind of transformation is very unlikely. I mean, they overhauled their team. They got a full year of Alex Bregman and Yuli Gurriel. Also adding veterans like Carlos Beltran, Brian McCann, Josh Reddick, and Norioka, all known to get more contact on the ball rather than striking out. So that helps. That helps. They overhauled their entire roster, so it's not completely unheard of. But to go from one of the historically worst strikeout seasons to going to the best in baseball in only 1 year, one offseason, is very unlikely. No team in the live ball era has ever reduced their team strikeout total by that much in 1 year. Closest in the 1986-87 Seattle Mariners, who dropped by 285 pitches, 285 strikeouts. Astros also dropped 2.25 strikeouts per game. Then you look into the ability to stop chasing at balls. In 2016, the Astros swung at 36% of all breaking balls they saw at home that were below the bottom of the strike zone. In 2017, they improved that rate by chasing only 27% of those same pitches. On the road, they were actually better, though they didn't improve as much. In 2016, they only chased 27% of the pitches. In 2017, it was brought down to 25%. So they were still good at not chasing these pitches away. Where most of the time, this is the scandal has been at home for the Astros because they had the setup at home at Minute Maid Park. So it was very interesting that they were very good at not swinging outside the strike zone in away games. 4 of their hitters made improvements in their ability to lay off those pitches. You have Marwin Gonzalez, who went from a 40% swing rate to just 10%, which is insanity. Carlos Correa went from 27% to 15%. George Springer went from 18% to 12%, which is not that big, compared to Marwin Gonzalez, who went from 40% to 10%. That is mind-boggling to me. That is such a insane change that you can't really deny that this was helping in some way. Especially with the fact that Gonzalez had the highest percentage. He had the highest percentage of trash can bangs in that one Astros fans research. The highest percentage of bangs for at-bats, for swings, went to Marwin Gonzalez, and he went from a 40% swing rate to a 10% swing rate for breaking balls below the strike zone. After the Astros started using the trash can banging in late May, the Astros reduced their rate of pitch chasing from more than 25% before the banging to under 20% afterwards. So obviously the trash banging, it helped a lot. It helped a lot for the ability to not chase after terrible pitches and stuff like that. So you got to really think about it, man. That is insane. I mean, obviously, and a lot of people made this argument. A lot of people made this argument about why this is a big deal, why this shouldn't be a big deal, because you still have to hit the ball. It's still hard to hit a baseball, whether or not you know what the pitch is or where the pitch is going. Well, see, the thing is, that takes out most of the strategy. Zach Greinke, for instance, he said that he would rather face a hitter on steroids than a hitter that knows what pitch is coming. So it is a huge disadvantage for the pitcher, because you can't change up speeds, you can't use breaking balls, because the batter won't swing at anything outside the zone because they'll know it's coming. Which means you have to start throwing in the zone more, and once you throw in the zone more and they know it's a breaking ball that's going to be hung up in the zone, it's going for a homer. So these are huge differences between the before and to the after. Now, I've narrowed down 3 players. These are kind of the 3 biggest players on the Astros, hitting-wise. And these are specific stats that this Athletic article, which, by the way, the Athletic article is by Jason Stark and Eno Saris. So if you want to go check it out on the Athletic, go ahead. It's a great article. It goes way more in depth than I'm going in right now, if you want to read about it. George Springer, from 2014 to 2016, Springer's strikeout percentages looked like this, with 33%, 24.2%, and 23.9%. Those are strikeout percentages from 2014 to 2016. In 2017, his percent drove all the way down to 17.7%. That is the second largest drop of any qualifying hitter in baseball in 2017. The second largest. The largest drop was to Justin Turner of the Dodgers, which, were the Dodgers cheating? Probably not. But Justin Turner just had an insane year in 2017. So George Springer, who's been in the league for a while, up until this point, you can see that his strikeout percentages started going down and down. It trends down, but then it makes a huge jump to 17.7%. Which is insane. Carlos Correa, every season of his career except one, Correa struck out more at home than on the road, except for 2017, when he struck out nearly twice as many times on the road as at home. So he did way worse batting on the road than at home in 2017. Now, obviously, that could be anything, but looking at stats and looking at his past, it looks like he does better on the road than he does at home, and then all of a sudden he's striking out nearly twice as many times on the road. Then the most interesting part, the guy everybody's been focusing on because of buzzers and other conventions of cheating that could have occurred, Jose Altuve. So when they did the trash banging data collection, trash can banging only was only on 2.8% of all the pitches to Altuve that they monitored in 2017. That's the lowest of any Astro. So it seems like Altuve did not really take much, didn't partake much in the trash can banging. However, there's still those rumors about the buzzer. So if you have the buzzer, you don't necessarily need the trash can banging. So there's a thing for that for Altuve. So that's interesting to think about at least. 2017 was the best season of Altuve's career. He won an MVP trophy. His splits were 3.46, 4.10, 5.47. Strikeout percentages were actually worse at home than away, with 15.8% compared to 9.6%. So there's actually a chance that Jose Altuve did not partake in any of this, but we will never know for sure because the players don't talk about it. The MLB is not disclosing players because the players helped with the investigation. So players are not going to get thrown under the bus, so we'll never know. All we have is this fans data collection, and all we have are these statistics from 2016 to 2017. So I'm not saying that Jose Altuve exonerated here, but I mean, he's looking pretty good. He might be the shoeless Joe Jackson of this whole situation, which obviously none of these players are going to get banned from baseball. So that's not an issue. But I thought those stats were interesting. If you find them interesting, let me know. Up next, we're going to talk about the XFL.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
It's back. The XFL, ladies and gentlemen. I remember when I was sitting down and the Super Bowl ended, all my friends were texting me. I saw a post on Twitter. They were like, I can't believe it. Football season is over. What are we ever going to do? And then I said, what are you talking about? We've got the XFL, baby. We got the XFL coming up. XFL starts this Saturday. It's going to start on the Fox Network this Saturday. Of course, I'm excited for it. I was a big fan of the Alliance of American Football. I was a big Orlando Apollos fan. I had a hat, so I worked in the equipment room for the Clemson football team when I was in college, and when they were doing their draft, they didn't have any, like Nike never sent the Orlando Apollos any orange cleats. So if Steve Spurrier and Dabo Sweeney are friends, they asked Clemson to send them some orange Nike cleats. So we did. So my boss got like this huge box of like Orlando Apollo gear and then like an XFL football. I mean, an AAF football. And he was like, I don't want this hat. Who wants this hat? And I was like, dibs. And it is now one of my favorite hats. I actually have it. I'm actually wearing it right now. Go Apollos, baby. AAF champs. So I'm excited. I like these kind of football leagues, mostly because it's just a different thing to watch. Because the NFL's good and all, but it does get kind of boring. And football is not like basketball or baseball where bad basketball is unwatchable, bad baseball is unwatchable. Football is one of those sports where if it's bad, you can still watch it. And that's evident in the case that high school football is still huge. College football is huge no matter where you go. It's, of course, bigger some places than others, but that depends on the geographic region. But a lot of smaller schools still pack their stadiums out in college football. People like football. that's kind of how I saw the Alliance of American Football. I saw it as just more football, so I'm going to enjoy it. And there's cool stories in there that guys trying to get their second chance in the NFL. A couple of them actually did, and stuff like that. It's just a fun thing to do, and I hate when people like point out, is like, aren't you worried that it sucks? It's bad football, blah 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 blah. And I'm sitting there and it's like, I don't care, dude. It's football. I'm watching football in the spring. It's a bunch of dudes I've never heard of. I'm playing a fantasy football league now for the XFL. I mean, it's whatever, man. Like, it's fine. I don't care. I'm going to enjoy every second of it. I'm going to enjoy every stupid thing that the XFL pulls, because there's still a lot of things that we don't know what they're going to do. It's happening in 4 days, and there's still some things that we don't know what they're going to do. We don't know what the broadcasts are going to look like. We don't know how the entertainment's going to look like, because, you know, the original XFL had different cameras, different entertainment options. They had the video board. They interviewed players during the middle of the game. They had the cheerleaders. They made some stupid moves with the cheerleaders, with like filming the cheerleaders' locker room and stuff like that, which I hope that doesn't come back, because that is not going to do well on today. But it's going to be interesting, because the XFL really did innovate some things when they first started out, and I'm hoping that they take the Sky Judge from the Alliance of American Football, because that was a really cool idea, and it was interesting to hear how the refs explained reviews and stuff like that. But it's going to be interesting. Here's the slate of games. You got the Seattle Sea Dragons versus the DC Defenders. That's the very first new XFL game. 2 p.m. Eastern Time, ABC, Seattle Sea Dragons, which their logo looks like UAB Blazers, versus the DC Defenders, which I'm 100% sure is just a soccer team. Still not 100% positive if it's a actual football team or not. We'll find out Saturday. Then you have the LA Wildcats versus the Houston Roughnecks. Houston Roughnecks looking like the Houston Oilers. They got the Oilers look, and the Wildcats look very generic and lame, to be honest. That's going to be on Fox. And then Sunday, you're going to have the New York Guardians, which also look lame, against the Tampa Bay Vipers, which actually they don't look that lame. Their uniforms kind of suck, though. But that's also going to be on Fox. And then on ESPN, Sunday Night Football. The Battlehawks, which is easily the best game, best name, best logo. I feel like it's the St. Louis Battlehawks versus the Dallas Renegades. The Dallas Renegades just looks like a creative team in Madden, pretty much. So I love it. I cannot wait. I kind of hate that there's no team around me, because that's one thing I liked about the AAF. You had a team in Birmingham, Alabama. You had a team in Atlanta. So I always had like a chance to go watch a game. I never did go watch a game, though, but there's chances for me to go watch games. We've described the rules already. It's going to be interesting how the kickoffs work. Kickoffs are different. Kickoffs are weird. It's going to be interesting to see how those work. Then, of course, you have the double pass rule, simplified, 1 foot inbound, so it's more college football. The ball spotting, the official, how is that going to work? The coach-player communication, which is, I think more players have it. It's a shorter halftime, so like it's going to be very interesting to see, because the XFL was built on the principle that they want more football and less of the BS. So they got shorter half times. Is there going to be less commercial breaks? Is there going to be less? There's going to be no extra points. You got the point after touchdown, where you can get 2, 3, 4, whatever points off of that, depending on how far back you are, which that's going to be interesting. Their overtime is college based. That's going to be interesting. Only a 25-second play clock, which that's going to go by like that. A comeback period, running game clock, replay rulings and stuff like that. It's going to be interesting to see how all of this stuff works, because the XFL's kind of hyped this stuff up to be the future of football. So we'll see how all of that turns out. I'm excited. If you haven't already, choose a team. Even if you don't live near any of these teams, just choose a random team. just choose a team. If you like their logo, if you live near them, that's fine. If you like their logo, if you like a player on their team, like a lot of these teams went for former college players that live near there, just like the AAF did. Just choose a random team, because nothing is more fun than the team you chose losing the very first game. And then you can make the joke, it's like, oh man, we lose every game. It's hilarious. It's not that hilarious, but it's hilarious, you know? I just like it when new leagues pop up. I hope it lasts a while. I wish the AAF lasts a while. I think the XFL has the financial capabilities to last for a while. I'm excited about it. I truly am. I really don't think you can describe my excitement right now. I'm looking at apparel right now. I'm looking at hats currently. The LA Wildcats is just such a terrible logo. It's just so lame. New York Guardians logo is also pretty lame, just so you know. Sea Dragons I'm okay with, although it looks like UAB. A lot of hats are sold out, apparently. I need a Battlehawks hat to go with my Orlando Apollos hat. So I'll be looking into that. But yeah, man. I truly, truly, truly want everyone to buy in. Just buy in. Even if you don't like Vince McMahon, if you don't like WWE, if you think it's going to be fake like WWE, like so many people in the original XFL said, I don't care. Just choose a team, have fun with it, because it might not last long, so it doesn't matter. But anyways, that's it for me. That's the Tuesday show. Hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the show, if you like me, give a like, rate, subscribe to the show on any of your podcast platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. And then, of course, you can follow GSMC Sports on Twitter with GSMC_sports. You can follow me on Twitter at Strickland_Josh on Twitter. Follow the rest of the GSMC podcast network. Check out some other podcasts. Like, you got the MMA podcast, you got baseball podcasts, you got health and fitness podcasts, you got social media podcasts. You got podcasts for everything you need. So check out other podcasts on the network. Thank you for taking your time out of your day to listen to me ramble about the XFL, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.